I'm gonna hit you with a TLDR upfront. Rivals of Aether 2 is one of the best mechanically solid platform fighters out on the market right now. And aside from Nintendo, people would say that this is the best platform fighter. So it's one of the best platform fighters that I cannot recommend you buying at its sticker price of $29.99 USD. Unless you really enjoy the competitive 1v1 aspect of platform fighters, there's just not enough game here for me to say that it's worth its $30 price tag. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, it's Dimz. Today, I'll be talking to you about Rivals of Aether 2, about a year and a half after its launch. I technically wrote this script like before Galvin came out, but life happens, and a lot of my points actually still stand. Now, this is not going to be an exhaustive list of like all the changes that happened from beta all the way until now, but more of a video about the game if you're still on the fence, took an extended break, or you're just curious about the game in general. This is coming from someone who has been playing Rivals 1 from release. I backed the Kickstarter for Rivals 2, and I've been playing Rivals 2 ever since release. Well, up until October 7th, 2025, the day of Galvin's release. I played for a few days after that, but the game hasn't really changed enough for me to continue. This is also coming from someone who is pretty critical about their media that they consume, especially when it comes to video games. I'm going to try to break this up into sections, so I guess check the chapters below, but let's start with the gameplay. The gameplay has changed since Rivals 1, where in Rivals 1 it could be described as its own thing, since the regular fighting game triangle of attack, shield, and grab was pretty absent. In Rivals 2, however, they added shields and grabs and even ledges. This makes the game itself more similar to the Super Smash Bros. Series, specifically Melee, than any other platform fighter that you can draw from. This change in style from Rivals 1 to Rivals 2 actually caused a good amount of players some transitioning issues when they, because it's a brand new game. But moreover, this affected the characters themselves. Without going too in depth, some of the characters' movesets were not designed with shields in mind. But after a lot of patches and updates from launch all the way until like now, the characters have evolved to fit their new realities. The game has also brought over old mechanics from Rivals 1, like hit falling, while introducing new mechanics like ledge specials. All in all, the gameplay is the most solid thing of Rivals of Aether 2. But that's not where the biggest faults lie. That is, if you know how to play the game. By that I mean, do you know how to play a platform fighter? Like, do you know the basics? It doesn't matter if you answered yes or no, because if you're new to Rivals of Aether, I hope you have someone to teach and learn the game with, because there were no tutorials at launch. And even 1 year after the game has launched, all the tutorials was not put into the game yet. And, there were actually no character-specific tutorials on top of that 1 year in. You would have to go out of your way to go watch videos or explore wikis to find out actually how to play the game or how to play your character. That's, I guess, a little better today, but it still took them a year and a half to get that done. And even after you use these tutorials, which is the funny part, it barely prepares you for the actual game you're going to step into. In my honest opinion, no game should have you rely on supplemental material just to learn how to play the game. Learning advanced systems and community found tech? Maybe. But you just learning how to get started? Definitely no way. It's not a good look at all. And then on top of that, once you get out of the tutorial, where do you think is a good and safe environment for you to test out what you've learned? Because, this game doesn't really have any game modes. Let's go through them one by one. There's arcade mode, where you get to choose a character and go through a series of like 8 fights, technically 7. The fights are character specific and don't change. Unlike arcade modes in other fighting games, you don't receive a drop of lore for the character that you finish it with. You just get to see a picture at the end, and you can't really do anything with it. It's just fighting the computer for a few matches. Speaking of, next is bot match. You just fight a computer. If you win, they get stronger. If you lose, they get weaker or stay the same. It's kind of a slap together survival mode, but with none of the fixings. So it isn't really a survival mode. It's just fighting the computer, but it automatically changes the difficulty for you. Next, there's local versus, where you can play against someone next to you or another computer. Up to you. Then there's training mode, which does have a lot of good options that, helps you set up scenarios if you know what you're doing. Then there's a trials menu, where you can play target test, which is just break the targets. You can also practice your movement and reactions by randomly hitting this spawning eye within a minute time frame. And you can practice edge guarding, which a computer-controlled character would try to get to the edge, and you just have to stop them from doing that. Like, this mode is really good to just warm you up. It essentially acts as a firing range for this game. Aside from that, you could just go online. You can search free-for-all matches or 2v2 matches. You can even duo search 2v2 matches with another online friend. But you can't duo search 2v2 matches with someone right next to you. Which it's weird how it's one or the other kind of choice with the games like this, because like in Smash Ultimate, this was like the opposite option instead of just allowing both options. I don't know. But truthfully, good luck finding a game while searching free-for-all or 2v2s, because these two modes notoriously have a low to non-existent player count anymore. It's only populated whenever a group of people, like in a Discord, plan to use it. This wasn't the case during the launch window of the game, the honeymoon period, but it is what it is. Aside from that, you can search casual 1v1 or ranked 1v1. Casual 1v1 puts you against any other opponent searching casual 1v1, and ranked 1v1 puts you up against opponents around your same skill rank. Quotation marks around the same skill rank, since with lower populations, the system will prioritize getting you into a match over everything else, which, I don't fault them for, but it results in ranked matches sometimes putting you up against opponents that are of way greater skill than you or way lower skill than you. So yeah, realistically, the game modes really boil down to fight the computer in a versus mode setting or fight someone 1v1 online. So if that's the reason why you left the game, then sorry to say this hasn't changed yet. At least the game has you always progressing towards something through its progression system. Which the progression system in Rivals 2 is ever present. It's an ever present system that no matter what you do, everything you do in the game, it earns you XP. And that XP goes toward two main things. 1, character progression, and 2, event progression. For character progression, whenever you complete a match while playing as a character, that XP you earn from the match will go to that character's progression level, as well as your current event pass. Each character has their own level up path, which for some reason you cannot visually see in-game, but it looks like they're going to be changing that soon, but you can't visually see that as the time of this video, which is like a year and some change in. But all of them are basically the same progression path. You're just going to get a few items of the character specific, maybe a taunt, then, an icon. You get 2 skins, but getting the second skin is going to take a lot of time. I mean, heck, getting the first skin at level 50 takes a lot of time, unless you're really grinding online. So, let's just move on to the event passes, where in the event passes, they're basically like battle passes, except event passes are free and last forever. This is a great thing, and it also gives you a skin for free for whenever you're like halfway through the pass. It'll give you a character skin. Also, if you use certain character skins during while under an event pass, you'll be given additional XP toward the event pass. While also the free skin of that event pass is a guaranteed skin that will give you the bonus XP toward the event pass. The issue arises when it comes to actually acquiring the XP. Even though everything you do in the game gives you XP, some things give you more XP than others. Playing versus mode against the computer, and by computer I mean bot match after you reach the highest level of difficulty, that's about 100 XP per match. playing through and completing arcade mode on the hardest difficulty, earning the highest rank with the stipulation that you have to complete all the stages in order to get paid out, that's about 150 XP per completion. Playing a ranked match and getting dumpstered, well, that's about 200 XP per game. Not per set, it's per game. So you could walk away with 400 XP per set, and a set being best 2 out of 3. It's kind of obvious that the game wants you to be playing online matches versus anything else. However, they do thumb the scales a bit when it comes to some of the game modes, because if you play 2v2 or free-for-all, you get an XP, bonus for playing and completing those matches. Though that doesn't really help the population, so still good luck finding a match in those playlists. But overall, it's a good progression system. However, with the reliance of only being able to play 1v1 matches to progress significantly, the game becomes a little one note. Also, yes, I do understand that it's a bit strange for this to be a possible complaint, because it's kind of like, wow, Dimz, did you not expect to fight other people in a fighting game? What it does is really brings into question the quality and the enjoyment of the fights themselves, and the one big factor of that is the character roster. Rivals of Aether's most standout feature has to be the character roster. I feel like it's the most notable thing about the series. How the characters play and stand out is not only crucial to a fighting game, but the reason why a lot of people would play the fighting game in the first place. Some people have defined the way the characters work in Rivals kind of like characters in MOBAs. But to keep the analogy within the genre, I would define that the characters of Rivals of Aether working more similarly to characters of Guilty Gear. As in, a lot of the characters require different fundamentals, combo disciplines, and hand motions, if you will. The roster isn't homogenized when it comes to the character feel or the character fundamentals in the least. Now, to most people, I just said a whole bunch of good things about the characters. Now, time to reveal some critiques when it comes to Rivals 2. While the character's diverseness is awesome, it seems that the design philosophies are not. If you're looking to play a zoner or a character with a defensive gameplay style, I'm going to let you know right now you're kind of out of luck. I might make a separate video about this in the future, because this is an issue that kind of exists in generally all the indie platform fighters, but for Rivals of Aether 2, if you're not rushing it down, you're probably losing. Also, the smaller roster size does not help this. Both of these elements kind of compound on one another, which in turn reduces the chances of someone finding a character that they would actually like to play, or, at least mechanically. Ask me how I know.
My aim is true.
It's a bit anecdotal, but Fleet was the character that I said I would play in the initial roster of 10 when it was officially revealed. Partially because I enjoyed her character in Dungeons of Aether, and partially because the character I mained in Rivals 1, Daedalus, wasn't there yet. Suffice to say, Fleet did not play the way I expected her to play, and every other character plays the game in a lesser way than I would like to, so there isn't anything I could just do about that. I will, however, mention the phenomenal decision that Aether Studio has made with Rivals 2 when it comes to adding new characters. All, and I do mean all, future DLC characters will be 100% free, no purchase necessary, aside from the game. They also aim to release 4 characters a year. That's 1 per season. So yeah, this should solve my issue, right? If I don't like any of the characters, just wait until one comes out that I do like. It'll be free, which is a very sensible solution. But it does suck that I have to wait an indefinite amount of time in order to maybe find a character that I would enjoy playing so I can improve my experience with the game overall. This also doesn't bode well when it comes to me recommending the game, since I am unable to truly enjoy the game yet. Speaking of characters, let's talk about something interesting. Never in my life have I played a fighting game where I disliked fighting every single one of the characters on the roster. Now, I'm not necessarily thrilled to fight every character on every roster in fighting games, but I'm usually more neutral than dislike. But also I do understand that this might be an add-on feature to me not even liking the character that I'm currently playing. Nevertheless, in Rivals 2, fighting against every character's gimmick, it gets tiring. I don't know what it is or how to actually solve this. It's just every time I boot up the game to play versus against any character, I feel like I'm using so much brain power to just not make mistakes and to remind myself about spacing against each characters, each particular matchups, their setups, and just keeping in mind the unique matchup specific interactions that we have against each other. Not to mention the constant flux of the game being patched or balanced, where some minute interactions and flowcharts might never be the same again after each patch. But I know what some of y'all might say. Skill issue, skill issue. And I get that. But at the same time, I feel like I could put these three characters up on the screen and a lot of people would understand. Now, I'm not trying to make this section about balance or anything, but I do believe that there's something functionally off about this game, and I don't know how to pinpoint it, and I don't think simple buffs or nerfs would solve it. I mean, heck, I don't even think the balance of the game is particularly bad. I just would like to be able to play the game for more than 40 minutes without getting a headache. This might just be a me thing, but at the same time, I'm also very glad that spectating this game and spectating the tournaments is very entertaining, so I guess I'll just take that. Alright, I think it's about time I address the monetization of Rivals 2. Rivals 2, like pretty much every other live servicey game nowadays, has a shop and different currencies. Here's something interesting though. Rivals of Aether 2 has consistently some of the best and most numerous cosmetics when it comes to costumes and outfits for its characters in fighting games. Period. And I do mean period. There is no other fighting game out right now that has the amount of quantity and quality of skins than Rivals of Aether 2. And if there is, please tell me about it, because I would love to check it out. But don't be quick to get excited about the shop and monetization, because what puts a real dampers on things is that Rivals of Aether 2, they sell their items in their shop and such, they sell them all like it was a free-to-play game, while not being a free-to-play game. Even though that there are some skins that cost $5, the majority of skins that exist cost $10 or $15. Not to mention that soon there will be a purchasable mythic skin, and it is rumored to maybe cost around $20. And that's kind of a bad look considering the sticker price of Rivals 2. Yes, this isn't a premium $60 price game, but being $30 while having skins that cost $15, it doesn't really feel too good. If you know anything about this channel, you would know that I have bought a ton of these skins in order to review them. But ultimately, I was doing it so I could just find a way to support Aether Studios, since the game itself wasn't really doing much for me, but I really do like Rivals. So much so that I actually decided to be a whale in this game, and I actually kept track of all my direct spendings. And according to my data, for every time I swiped my card and paid for something, the total amount of money I've spent on this game so far is $340. Now, to a lot of people, that might not seem like whaling at all, but to me, this is the most money I've ever spent on microtransactions for a game in my life. Now, I haven't spent a dime in a while, but at the same time, like I said, I was just doing this to support the game. But my support was noticed and actually appreciated. So much so that I was able to be accepted in the Rivals of Aether 2 creator program. And I got my own shop code. So be sure to use the code DIMZ, that is code DIMZ, in the Rivals of Aether 2 shop on your next purchases.
What was I saying again?
So when I critique this aspect of the game, I don't say it because, oh, they're just trying to get money and that's a bad or anything. I mention it because it's honestly a little too pricey, and it does not do the game any favors, where there's really nothing else to do in the game, besides the 1v1 aspect. Which makes it really hard to argue against the notion that Aether Studios has put more thought into the shop than other things in the game, especially when the skins and the shop is kind of the focal point of the game's marketing and updates nowadays. About twice a month, they, kind of reveal a new shop skin or a new skin bundles. And they put a lot of great work into these like videos and stuff. But that is like at the forefront of their updates. In the background, you'll find like the balance patches. Not saying that this is a bad way to do updates for your game, but I am saying that the shop and the skins are the main things that are being advertised for the game. And that's basically how this game's been for like its lifetime. So it's not hard to think that this game was probably made as a free-to-play game first, and then they slapped on the sticker price later. This is also backed up by some of the blog posts that Aether Studios has made. We'll go over that later. And to go alongside with the monetization, let me touch back on the event passes one more time, because the event passes are an actually great thing. Like I said before, it is basically mini battle passes that last forever, and you can work toward any of them at any time, and it's free. And what it gives you while you work through them, with the progression system, is that it gives you both coins and premium currency. It also gives you, a free skin. It's a real good highlight to this game's monetization, and it has been a brilliant idea. And honestly, on paper, you feel like it should balance out, the fact that we're getting all the DLC, character DLC for free, and also all the event passes is also free. But, they're just going to say, hey, our shop prices are going to kind of be higher or on the same level as other free-to-play games, while not being a free-to-play game. You just would think that would balance out, but realistically it doesn't, and it's mainly because the shop isn't the issue with the game. The issue in the game is that there's really nothing to do besides just grinding ranked. Like, it doesn't matter how many characters come to the game or how good you look if the only thing you're able to do with the characters in the game is just grind ranked. And I feel like because that there is like nothing else going on in the game, it's the shop that gets spotlighted because, there's nothing to do, but the shop is constantly getting updated. So that kind of brings it to the forefront. All right, let's sidestep monetization, and I want to talk about something real quick. I want to talk about the social aspects of Rivals 2. And I think it does need to be talked about because it seems like the devs actually try to put effort into it, so, I might as well critique it as well. And maybe effort is a wrong word because why did Rivals 2 make it weirdly difficult for you to try to talk or express yourself to others online? They have these emotes in-game where you can use on the character select screen before a match to, talk to your opponent. And I do mean opponent singular, since, you can't really use this chat feature when there's multiple opponents, a la the 2v2 mode. Anyways, as a base, you're given some pretty stock phrases to tell your opponent something simple, like hi, GG's, or one more game. The troubles comes in when you find out that you can get more emotes and phrases. So yes, you can expand your lexicon and become a real linguist, as long as you're okay with only talking in the permitted areas, maybe coming off as an a-hole, and opening your wallet. Yeah, so you can only talk in the character select screen, before or in between games. But in a recent update, they allow you to send in emotes at the results screen at the end of the game. Maybe just to give your opponent a farewell or a GG's. That is if they stay on the results screen long enough to actually see your emote. So my first question comes in, why can't we use these phrases and emotes mid-game? I mean, there's barely any taunts in this game anyway. Why not let us have the option to bind some of these emotes to the D-pad with our taunts? Or why not let us bind a taunt button where if we hold it mid-game, it'll just open up the whole library of all our phrases and emotes? I personally think that having the ability to communicate with each other is very important. Sometimes people need a reminder that your opponent is a real person. The only pushback I get to this opinion is that it might increase toxicity, which in a chat system like in Rivals 2, I would say that would mostly fall on what can be said and not where. Since anything that you can potentially say in-game, you can already say in between rounds. Which begs the question, what can you say? To get straight to the point, outside the stock phrases, most emotes in the game lean more negative than not. Which is definitely a strange choice to me, but don't get me wrong, there are a good amount of neutral emotes, but already being limited to what you can say before unlocking and buying new phrases and emotes, just to be met with the fact that most of the things you are likely to say will make you just seem like a big meanie. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather not pay to be a big meanie, but like, how else am I supposed to expand my in-game speech? Wait a minute. Why do we have to pay for speech at all? Alright, let's back up and talk about monetization again. Alright, here's an opinion that I've held for a while. Aether Studios does not know what to monetize in their game outside of character skins. The character skins are great, but everything else that you can buy in the game is really not worth it. You can buy profile icons, but realistically you're only going to use one, even though you can quickly swap between them on the fly. You can buy emotes that allow you to say new things in chat, which we just went over. You can buy colors for characters or character-specific skins that you already have. This irks me, and I already did a video on this. You can buy stage skins that will reskin the stage to look like something else while operating the same, which, that's pretty cool. And that's about it. The only other thing that you could buy in-game are like taunts, which I do think is a good idea, but there are so few purchasable taunts that it seems like Aether Studios doesn't want to pursue that venue. All in all, in Rivals of Aether 2, the only things that are worth buying is basically character skins. Everything else you should probably just use in-game coins on, but to get those coins you would have to play the game quite a bit. It really does seem like this $30 game was initially meant to be a free-to-play game, but probably pivoted to having a sticker price while leaving the monetization as is. And this is obvious speculation, but going off of the blog post made by the director of Aether Studio, as well as other sources like the dev streams, in the blog post posted by Dan Fornace on January 3rd, 2025 on Twitter, he talked about frequently asked questions about Rivals 2. A section that really caught my eye was the section about money. As stated by Dan, the Kickstarter for Rivals 2 raised just enough money to launch the game in November 2024, even though they raised $1 million. Now, I'm not daft, and I know that even though they raised over $1 million does not mean they pocketed $1 million. With that said, Dan stated that the company's business account had hit $0 before launch, which leads me to believe that the game did not launch in the best state that they wanted it to. This also coincides with the fact that launching with the first chapter of story mode was not in the budget and they would have to completely lay off the story mode team. But nevertheless, they had to make sure that they were profitable to continue development, which would make sense for them to have a sticker price for Rivals 2 as well as having a shop similar to free-to-play games. But now it kind of begged the question, if the game wouldn't be launched in the state that they would want it to, and more time would be better for the game, why didn't they launch the game in early access? According to Dan, they weighed the option of doing that and calculated that a full launch would be most beneficial for them because of the visibility and the reach that they would gain. Though in actuality, from what I have experienced in the past year and a half, this just means that Rivals 2 has been an early access game in every way but in name. And honestly, it definitely felt like it. It also seems that Aether Studios is still trying to keep their heads above the water because unfortunately at the end of 2025, Aether Studios had to make a few layoffs. Because Aether Studios committed themselves to too many goals all at once, they had to cut a quarter of their studio, which is around 8 people, in order to continue development for 2026. This to me really explains all the monetization practices that has been going on with Rivals 2. They are trying to remain profitable while working on the game so they can continue adding new and different content. Because, they do say that new and different content is coming outside of the skins. However, it seems like the skins is what gives them the direct money to keep going. They also want to make sure that the game is content rich of things to do before they decide to launch it on consoles. because porting to consoles and, definitely updates when it comes to consoles are not only expensive, but it is way more complicated. So it seems like they want to get all the kinks out now and, try to actually make the game full and worth it, then push it to consoles, which is a good thing. And I want to see them be able to do that. However, that's not the game that we have now. Anywho, I can go on, but it's not all bad and lackluster, right? Well, no. Rivals 2 genuinely has been becoming a better and better product. Even though the game's basically in early access and has had constant updates and patches, each update and patch has been making the game better and better. And I do mean that. That and the 1v1 moment-to-moment gameplay is truly great to see. The love that the developers have for its competitive community is also really great to see. Not only that, but the developers in general, their interactions with the players and content creators is some of the best I've ever experienced. I am so glad that this game has done so well. Like, it's done well enough to become a main game on the EVO lineup. That's an amazing thing. Anyway, let me wrap up this video. Aether Studios, it seems like they learned some things from Rivals 1 and improved, but at the same time, they fell for similar pitfalls. The reason I make these critique videos on Rivals is because I really do like the series, and I see its potential and it being way bigger than it currently is. Now, I don't know if Aether Studio wants it to be that big or even knows how to execute on that, but that's a different conversation. What we do have currently is Rivals 2, Rivals of Aether 2. It is one of the best and mechanically solid platform fighters. It's a fighting game with one of the most and best variety when it comes to alternate costumes. It is a game that is tough as nails and endlessly demanding if you have competitive pursuits with it, despite it being all fluffy and furry in appearance. It's a product that I cannot recommend for its $29.99 USD price, nor at its current patch of 1.5.6 if you are looking for a well-rounded game with more things to do other than 1v1 somebody. But also with that said, if you can get the game for less than $20 and you're fine with a 1v1 of it, yeah, definitely go for it. Let's look over the horizon for a bit. Rivals 2 has a roadmap of changes and updates that they're planning to make, and the things that they want to add would make the game, well, more of a game. They have announced that they will be adding more game modes for people who don't always want the hardcore experience, as well as more quality of life features and options, and just continuing to update the game and improve the game. I am going to stay along for the ride as these updates come out, even if at times it will be from afar. And hopefully Rivals 2 will turn into the game that truly lives up to its potential, or at least a large portion of its potential. Because with me just being honest, if Rivals 2 doesn't end 2026 in the way that gives it an upward trajectory when it comes to profitability, I will be very skeptical about how long could the game continue to tread water. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I'm just going to be rambling for another minute as I say my farewell, but if you're not in for that, just make sure to use my code DIMZ in the item shop if you're going to buy something Rivals 2. That would be much appreciative. But aside from that, yeah, this video, I kind of pushed it out, and it was supposed to be out like last year around October, like I said earlier in the video. But, life happens, and, the game just kept getting updated and updated. So I just tried to, tailor this script and video around the updates. So whatever I say doesn't immediately get just thrown out and just patched out, which would be a good thing if I have less things to complain about. But, right before this, it was, right like a week before or so, it was announced that they were doing a big update for April 7th. So I'm really just trying to push this video out before then. But yeah, thank you for watching, and more videos to come. Not everything I want to say about Rivals 2 is in this video. I will be making a lot more smaller critique videos here and there. But yeah, please stick around on the channel if any of this is interesting to you. But above all else, you all have a good one.